yield on Bitcoin. Like, some people just want to hold the asset and pursue the capital gain unrealized forever. I get it. If you had a fund, if you're an institution, if you're Harvard Endowment or a church and you don't pay tax on operating income, I look at 226% and I think, well, that's a pretty big tax bill. But then I think, well, what if I didn't have a tax bill? What if I lived in UAE or Singapore, right? Or what if I had a trust which was tax advantage? Maybe you would feel differently about that. What if I've raised $1 billion to invest? I get paid 2 and 20, and I'm supposed to find all these ideas. Well, I think I think there's a lot of interesting ideas. I think that if Bitcoin is a 55 vol ARR or 50 vol ARR with a 50 vol, or 50 volatility and 50% ARR, there's a lot of people that they would rather have 20 ARR, 20 vol. Like they don't really, it's like high voltage power coming into your house. It's nice to have it, but then you don't want it in your hair dryer lest you drop it into the bathtub and electrocute yourself, right? Or in your electric razor. So you've got this big transformer box that steps is buy Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin forever, and turn off the television. Right. And I think there's a lot of investors for which that's wise. If you're a professional, or if you have a very particular, entity, right? I mean, or a particular portfolio. If you're a professional investor, a money manager, you've got a particular client. If your client's saying, I want fixed income, I want to generate this much, I need to generate, yield, et cetera. Well, one thing I do think is I don't think you should chase after yield with FTX or offshore, unregulated, opaque exchanges. Not wise. If you're going to chase after yield, you should do it with regulated entities with full disclosures, knowing what kind of risks you're taking and with clarity as to who's accountable for the risk.
Yeah.
But I don't recommend anything because I really do believe there's 50,000 publicly traded companies. It's the question is, are any of them underpriced versus the risk expected return? Well, the risk-free cost of capital is, fill in your number, mine's 29%, but if you're pessimistic, maybe yours is 12%. Okay, if your base case forecast is 12%, then borrow the money at 4% and it works, right?
And this is all still in the context of $899 trillion of value is not earning 29% annualized. And, the best asset class historically is venture capital earning 25%, but you have to lock it up for 10 years and all the returns come from the top decile. So, that's what everybody else is looking at as their riskiest, longest term bet. Or you could just get the most liquid asset returning 29% plus.
Yeah, I think people work too hard at this. I mean, it's a very simple idea. You've got $1 trillion asset going to $100 trillion asset. It's 100x. And so what's the best way to make money? It's basically capitalize a private company with Bitcoin, capitalize a public company with Bitcoin, convert debt to Bitcoin, borrow money and buy Bitcoin. If you're a VC, you can try to find the next 10 Alibabas. That's hard. Or you can just go, they all look at, Satoshi was smart, but I got a better thing. Yeah, Bitcoin was good, but I got a better thing. It's like, but how am I going to get rich and famous if I just embrace Bitcoin? It's like, by the way, there are ways to get rich and famous by embracing Bitcoin, right? The problem is when you stray from the path of righteousness. You embrace Bitcoin, you become a great Bitcoin custodian, then you trade shit coins, right? You embrace Bitcoin, you create a Bitcoin fund, then you start to trade altcoins, right? You embrace Bitcoin, you securitize it, and then you drift off to do the next thing, right? The world's full of people that they found it And then they thought, well, I've conquered this. Now I got to do something else. By the way, I was that guy, right? When I came public, I had a good thing, MicroStrategy, the greatest business intelligence software. We grew for a decade. We conquered the world. I was like, okay, well, I've declared victory. Now I got to invent 10 more things. So I launched 10 more things. I launched Alarm Launch based on digital capital, digital energy. Oh, a lot, I have no doubt. But it's just remember, pick the right protocol, and don't get distracted and try to avoid blowing yourself up, in the process.
Sage advice. I can't help myself, by the way, going back to MSTXY and or MSTY and MSTX. Just this is like public service announcement. And again, none of this is investment advice. But for the degens out there, be advised that these are quote unquote daily trading investments. So if the share price starts at $10 and it goes up to 11 the next day, and then the next day it goes back to $10 to where it started, actually the way the math is, you'll lose money. And that, by the way, is if the instrument works. And in my, I've been watching these daily levered instruments for years now, not specific to Bitcoin, but sometimes they blow up and sometimes they deviate significantly from their benchmark. So it's all in the same vein as do your own research, be careful, watch out for leverage.
Yeah, those are all securities trading ideas, and you should become a securities expert and assess all the risks. There's a bunch of regulations that have to be formed to clarify, right? There's a lot of work for a lot of people in the ecosystem. And, you can make your career being a leader in any one of those areas. There's a dude that figured out how to create electric shavers, and the contribution is it works and it doesn't electrocute you. And it was probably there's an entire company that dedicated their, 30 years to perfecting that thing. And we're going to have the equivalent of those sort of things, right, in the digital assets ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that's the inspirational part. There's something to do in your day job. That's how you earn money. But, never forget, right, that you got to see the world as P&L and balance sheet. On your P&L, you should do something, whatever you're best in the world at, whatever you're best. If you're a dentist and you're the best dentist in your city, you'll have a good job. My advice is make sure you stay on top of the dentistry thing. The third trigger is going to be full bank custody. And I don't know when that happens, but I think it happens definitely in the next 4 years. Maybe it'll happen faster depending upon the outcomes on November 5th. And so I think all of us, we should grant ourselves or view ourselves as being fortunate to be in the Bitcoin ecosystem right now as the entire asset class is coming to life as a mainstream institutional asset. And as people start to recognize the power of the digital capital transformation. I encourage everybody just to, do your own work. Go to hope.com. There's a lot of information there. I post a ton on X, /Twitter. And there's a lot of other good content, everybody's putting out. So I think you'll find it to be interesting. And then depending upon your situation, and you can take that and you can crank in different assumptions about the U.S. debt and the growth rate of, any government. You can create models for any country, any company, any family, any endowment, the United States, all the other assets. And so there's a lot of very good discussions to be had there. And there's a lot of reasonable debate, but I think that welcoming the debate is the beginning of a conversation that elevates everyone's thinking to new levels of sophistication. And ultimately, there's just a lot of businesses, most corporations, what's your treasury strategy? Oh, well, we just buy treasuries and look for something better. What? We just have money parked there until we find a good merger, right? What? Well, of course, they'll have a strategy. Their strategy is just not to lose too fast.
Mm-hmm.
And Bitcoin is about a strategy of winning. And most public companies, most private big companies, and most startups, they all could immediately benefit if people started talking a lot more about, Bitcoin treasury strategies. And you can go ahead and take Bitcoin 24 and you can spin out these models, to help everybody figure out where they want to take their company, their endowment, their whatever, and elevate their thinking. I think 10x, because most of these models are just intellectually vacuous, or they're garbagey things, short-sighted, not very thoughtful. And I think it's incumbent upon us to elevate everybody's thinking and sophistication, and it'll be a benefit to the marketplace in general.
Well, to our listeners, there's your admonition. Have those conversations. Help